The federal government, led by President Bola Tinubu, has announced that approximately 5,000 federal civil servants will not be receiving their December salaries, and that's because of some discrepancies in their dates of first appointment as well as their date of birth. Now, this decision has caused a stir among the affected workers and has raised concerns about the fairness and the accuracy of the government's records as well. I said accuracy because some other persons were accidentally delisted because they thought that they were part of the majority who will not be getting their salaries, but eventually over 2,000 of them were relisted and will now be getting paid. Now, the union representing the affected workers has been working with the head of civil service to address the issue and has forwarded the names of those impacted by the discrepancies. The investigation is still ongoing, and some of the individuals, like I said earlier, have been reinstated and will be receiving their salaries, thankfully, and others will physically have to verify, these issues. But until then, they will not be compensated for the month of December. Now, this situation kind of raises important questions about the reliability of government records and the impact of administrative errors on the livelihoods of thousands of workers. Because just imagine for a second that that error was not detected. Over 2,000 people who were not affected, would have been accidentally delisted and nothing would have been done. It also highlights the need for greater transparency and accountability, of course, in the management of civil service records. So that said, I will now be joined by Ogbonna Ukuku, investment and economic development expert in Abuja. Thank you so much, Ogbonna, for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, Ogbonna. Now, from this development, several things caught my attention, but I think the most important one to start with is what kind of system can be put in place to ensure that this kind of issue does not even arise in the first place. I believe that if the system for checks are, properly set, these issues with date of birth and date of first, registration or whatever wouldn't even arise in the first place. So what can be done in that aspect?
Okay, let me answer the question from the other end. Okay, so now we're interested in how federal government workers, people's names are being omitted, from the system, the payment system. Now, have you ever, okay, so let's also look at it from this point of view. So the workers, if they can't get their records done properly, so you can imagine when they dispense what they're supposed to do, that the job that they do, how they carry out their job, and then how it affects, because the civil service is actually the engine room of the nation. Now, if they run the wheel of the nation, and then they are the ones who interface with investors who want to do business in Nigeria, they interface with the private sector, those who have to propel the economy, and then they can't manage things as simple as their own data. So that tells you that a lot needs to be done to make sure that we have a functional civil service system. So the head of service, I know what they're trying to do is to, scrutinize, make sure that we delist those who are not supposed to be on that list. Of course, you must have heard things, you must have heard words around ghost workers. Those things did not come from the air. These are things that have existed in our system, which was actually one of the reasons why the IPPS system was actually introduced. So, technology has to be in place to help, make these things work. But technology will only work with data imputed in. If you impute data in so it's garbage out. So what you impute is what it gives you. So if at the back end where you're supposed to impute the right data and those data are not properly, put in there, so when the skimmish comes, it becomes difficult for the result, which is where the payment happens, to occur. So that's actually what's going on. So it will now mean that those people who were omitted must go physically to, go with their letters of appointment, their certificate of date of birth and stuff like that, to go and do a physical verification. But I know this won't occur anymore because as soon as those data are there, they can't be erased anymore. So I think it's just something that must occur so that you have an efficient system. And after that, with what the head of service has employed, things will become better going forward.
Right. Now, as opposed to what we would usually know, the phrase bringing a knife to a gunfight. Now, a lot of people believe that this is not that serious, and the delisting wasn't even necessary in the first place, and it was just like bringing a gun to a knife fight in this case. Do you think that that's the case?
I think there's a trust issue here between the labor union and the government. They just believe every little thing that happens that probably government is trying to do, trying to be funny. I mean, I don't see any government that will sit down and say, okay, I don't want to pay my workers. No, it's just a process, and they need to be patient. If the process, requires, like I said, this is technology we're discussing here. FPS is a technology deployed into a system that will help the payroll control and payroll administration. So if the payroll system now finds loopholes, so it, like I said, it's a computer. It will definitely just it will flag those names or those individuals. So if that is the case, because the system has been put in place and those things are not working well. So the next thing is when it's flagged, those people will be contacted, or those people who are affected will now come physically so that they will be able to now impute their data, adequately, properly, and then the things now begin to work again, smoothly. So I think it's just a trust issue. The labor union, I think they're having a trust issue. They don't believe that government wants to actually make, fulfill their own side of the bargain.
Now, speaking of the issue of technology, which you did raise, I mean, we're grateful for the technological advancement in several countries and not just Nigeria. And Nigeria has benefited a lot from technology. But does this now raise the issue of the need to monitor our technological devices and, the areas where we adopt technology? Because it looks as though we're not completely ready to, trust 100% the technology will have. Because how exactly do you delist 2,000 people that shouldn't have been affected in the first place?
Now, you see, first of all, let's look at the number of people who are workers. If you have 17,000 workers, those who are in the mainstream civil service, and 2,000 is being delisted, I mean, that's not more than is less than 30% error occurring. So that still gives it a pass mark. So my point is, the technology is there. And again, technology does not manufacture things from the air. Technology will only work with data that was, impute in it. So it was at the point of imputing, that's where these issues occur, because technology will be programmed to do A, B, C, D, just to check that there are no ghost workers, or these people are real civil servants in Nigeria. Don't forget, in time past, we've had issues of, people being paid salaries as they're sitting there in their homes. Some people who they don't even know anything about what we're doing, and then they just sit down in their homes and receive salaries. So that was actually why they introduced this technology. So if during the time of imputing some of these data, or people submitting their forms for the imputing of data, or going for their data capturing, they were not able to do it effectively, these are the things that will occur. So I don't think that technology has done us bad. Technology has actually helped us, because I can imagine the waste that used to occur in the past when we used to have ghost workers. So maybe by now we'll be talking about paying over 50,000 people as against maybe 17,000 people. So now, if there's an issue occurring because 2,000 people were the technology, some issue or the other took out 2,000 names. So the 2,000, as far as I'm concerned, should go back and do their verification. It's not as if the head of service in America, head of service is there with them at the secretariat. So most of them should go back there to the secretariat, do their verification, and then they will be captured back into the system, and then their payments will start rolling.
Well, so that is possible if we were not in a country with so much bureaucracy and bottlenecks. And that's why a lot of people are concerned. Now, let's say that this over 2,000 people who were delisted, accidentally delisted, let's say it was a whole different story. And for some reason, they now had to prove that, it was an accident that they were delisted. In this country, I mean, from our track record and things that have happened in the past, it is somewhat difficult to just get things done immediately, and you can attest to that fact. And I think that that is where the concerns of people come in, because what if it had happened differently? What if the accident was, it happened in a way that you now had to prove, or there had to be a whole other process for you to just prove that your name shouldn't have been delisted in the first place? That is where the concern now comes in. If we were in a more, developed country, a country where you can easily access things, you can easily defend things, you can easily get things, verifications done and all that, it would have been a different case. But we are in Nigeria, and we know how things work sometimes in the country. That's where the fears, I don't know if you can now see where people's concerns will come from.
No, I mean, if you're speaking for the people, I understand. But I mean, the same people should also, attest to the fact that technology has also helped. Look at what used to happen in immigration services. Just for people to have their passports done, people queue, all kinds of things happen. But as soon as the new minister came, he said, this can happen under my watch. Because I mean, these are very simple things. And then he deployed his expertise as regards technology and said, this is the timeline that each and every person should get their passport. And today he has started working. So my point still remains that the same people complaining, for me, are the real issues that we've had. The bureaucracy we are talking about is created by those bureaucrats. These are the people, the civil servants. Because I mean, if you look at it, okay, tomorrow somebody will say refineries are not working. The people who run the refineries, are they politicians? They are still the civil servants. So it's only when they cry foul, sometimes I get really worried. I mean, are we okay here? You are the ones who manage the refineries. You've had the military, you have all kinds of people come in and go out of government. You are the only constant thing in Nigeria. The only system that is constant is the civil service. So if any inefficiency occur, you should ask yourself the question: have you had a civil servant who decided to resign from work because the efficiency? I can't see the efficiency in the system. So I am more concerned with them being able to do the right thing. I'm putting the blame more on them than the government, because if your data is not properly captured on a system, how come you can't just go back and do your verification and say, okay, my name was not captured, my date of appointment was this? If there are no discrepancies, I can tell you, how come the other 15,000 people went through and the 2,000 people did not go through? There must be something that I have not gone into to see what the issues are in details, but I can tell you, computer does not know anybody, does not know Wale or know Emeka. The computer just works with whatever that was put in it, so that the payment system will just be running seamlessly.
Right. Now, what measures would you say can be taken to ensure that these kind of issues or mistakes or accidents do not happen again?
I think first, the head of service should have, the head of service through Servicom. Apart from Servicom, dealing with outsiders or those coming to, making sure that there's efficiency within the civil service system, I think they should work within themselves, have a self-re-evaluation of themselves, how they work, how they deliver. Their public value proposition should be carried out on every civil servant in Nigeria, to know that the job you're doing would affect the next person, affect the economy, and also affect you, because if you don't do it well, it's going to affect a whole lot of things. Because I mean, you are the engine wheel of every system, the engine wheel of the entire Nigerian economy. So if you are not functioning well, you affect every other person. So that, like I call it, the public value proposition that needs to be carried out on every civil servant in Nigeria. Value value your existence as a civil servant, what you are bringing to the table, and then put it side by side with what your earnings are. Then it can make legitimate, you can agitate legitimately if you need to get more, and then have a conversation with the government. But I think that there's still need for adequate training, adequate upgrading of the people as you're bringing this technology, bringing the new systems. The people need to be carried along. They need to understand what's going on. Because, I mean, if you bring in consultants to do jobs for them at the ministry level, and then the people are not understanding what you're saying, and then again, we need to also understand that a lot of people don't like change. They don't like change. Human beings by nature don't like change. So you need to, I don't want to use the word pamper them into understanding, but I mean, just keep engaging them to make sure that they come up to speed with whatever things that you're deploying as far as civil service is concerned.
Right. I mean, just like you said, Ogbonna, thankfully, technology has come to help, and we would not try to deny it. There are perks to this. And I think one of it is the fact that there is now more like an eagle's eye on the civil service in the country, managing things in that sphere. So if things continue like this with more, people being more meticulous to the civil service and the running and management of it, how do you see that sector, the civil service generally, developing in the next 5 years in Nigeria?
Of course, it's gonna, I mean, things will just turn around, automatically, whether we like it or not. I mean, when you see things that are going wrong, if you're able to report, and then, if you have deliverables, they have set targets for each and every one of them, and then they're able to meet their targets. As far as I'm concerned, the economic development, strategy of any nation will work when you have a strong civil service. If you have an elaborate system that accommodates the civil service. Don't forget, they churn out the policies. Yes, as far as government might have a policy direction, but I mean, because of the way the nation is structured, the whole memo, the discussions, the engagements will be carried out by the civil service. So them being, on the same page with the government of the day, or any government, even at the local level, makes life a lot easier for everybody. And you see, there'll be growth in the economy. I used an illustration. I said, when it comes to, everybody discusses how refineries are not being run well. At what point did NNPC stop being, stop having government workers? They're all still government workers. They're all still part of the Nigerian labor union. So they should start being, assessing themselves. So why are these things not working? So it's not just the politician who just won elections 2 years ago that you say, oh, you are the problem. No, there's someone that has been consistent. They say soldier go, soldier come, barracks remain. Because I mean, that's their own slogan. They say it all the time because they are the ones that will never go anywhere. Do you know what it takes to sack one civil servant? It's so difficult to sack a civil servant. The amount of queries, the amount of back and forth, you have the industrial before you can sack a civil servant. So like I said, it's easier to sack a politician than to sack a civil servant. So they are embedded, they are part of the structure. So they are the foundation of everything. So mine is making sure that they work well and they begin to work well. You see, in the next 5 years, like you're projected, you will see an efficient, Nigeria. You see a better Nigeria.
Hopefully so. Thank you so much, Ogbonna Ukuku, investment and economic development expert in Abuja. Thank you for shining more light on the issue and, of course, explaining things from your own perspective. I mean, it's very clear now how you've put things into perspective, and we really do hope that things get better from here and not worse off. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Well, you're still watching Village Square Africa. When we come back, we'll take a look at the flooding issue in Kenya and the controversy between whether or not they got funding for the floods or not. Do stay with us.